fellow human beings, PowerGamer here. It's Thanksgiving, and you know what that means? You have to do everything in your willpower to avoid screaming at your cousins and in-laws about politics, and the best way to do that is with food. Now, unfortunately, I know next to nothing about cooking. I mean, I literally struggle with making toast. What do I do here? So I'm gonna use one of the most popular cooking video games ever made to try and hone my skills. That way I hopefully won't have to argue with Grandpa about Jimmy Carter again. Cooking Mama, don't fail me now.
Cooking Mama, a title that may or may not sound sexist depending on who you're talking to. A series that isn't one of the most popular out there, but there are a decent amount of people who remember it fondly. I remember seeing a lot of commercials for it when I was younger, but I never actually played any of them myself, and not that many people talk about it anymore, aside from the most recent game in the series being considered contraband for a while, but this isn't the place to get into that, because today we're taking a look at the original game in the series. It was developed by Office Create, a Japanese development studio that wasn't very well known at the time, since the majority of their games never left Japan. In fact, their stuff is so unknown that I genuinely can't find any information on them, not even a list. But Cooking Mama was their first game to achieve any sort of major success, and even then, this game doesn't have much info on it other than it was made for the Nintendo DS, and publishing it was a joint effort between 3 different companies. That being Taito, the same company that made Space Invaders and Bubble Bobble, Majesco, the company that did Blood Rain, some Bomberman stuff, and a bunch of random license titles, and 505 Games, who will go on to publish Terraria, which is neat. Plus it won IGN's Best of E3 2006 award, which it proudly proclaims on the box. Best of what? I have no idea. Food Preparing Mother was released on March 23rd, 2006 in Japan, September 12th in North America, and Europe and Australia in December. And once again, it was by far Office Create's most successful game, managing to sell over 4 million copies by 2008. In fact, the game was so successful that Office Create's officially rebranded into Cooking Mama Limited, and would make nothing but titles for this series from here on out. Cooking Mama from this point on would become a pretty long-running franchise, and Mom herself would end up branching out into other hobbies like gardening, babysitting, and crypto mining, allegedly. The reception for the original game was actually pretty mixed, which really makes me wonder what that award was for. And the organization PETA threw a fit over it to the point where they actually made an online flash game about it, but that doesn't really matter. Those guys will scream at you for anything besides actual animal abuse.
Again, I've never played this game before, but given how we reached the holiday all about eating, I can't think of a better time to try it. My DS is preheated, I borrowed this hat from my friend, and I can already smell the toast coming from the screen. Or maybe that's because I left the toaster on. Whatever, it's time to cook.
So the game has basically no introduction. After the title screen, you're able to jump right into Cooking with Mama. Who is Mama, you ask? Just some random lady that knows her way around the kitchen. Let's hope she's not from the 50s, because I'd be very concerned about her home life. Presentation-wise, the game is extremely basic. The artwork is alright, but nothing mouth-watering. The music is fine, though there isn't that much of it. Mama's animations are very simple, and she doesn't even talk. She only communicates through text bubbles. But what does cooking these types of foods actually require? Well, the entire game is composed of a series of touchscreen-based mini-games that require you to pick a dish and are given step-by-step instructions on how to prepare it, which pretty accurately depict how you prepare these foods in real life, at least I think they do. I don't know, I'm not a chef. Why do you think I'm playing this? How well you perform each task is given a rating, and once the dish is complete, you're awarded both a score and a medal. That's really all there is to it. There's a large variety of dishes to prepare, all from various parts of the world. You'll be making meat dishes, pasta, sushi, salad, eggs, and that's just to name a few. There's a total of 76 different recipes in the game, though you start out with only 15 and unlock more as you go. The amount of steps a recipe requires varies a lot, but in general, a recipe will only take you about 3 to 5 minutes to do. Aside from the instant ramen, which is literally just one step and that's it. The majority of steps require you to perform the correct input under a time limit. You can tell this is a DS game because it revolves entirely around the touchscreen, aside from a few parts where you need to blow into the microphone. You'll be swiping, tapping, scrubbing, and swirling all over the place, so I hope your touchscreen is durable. The steps all vary in terms of complexity and in terms of how forgiving they are. At the end of each step, you're either given a gold medal where you performed it perfectly, a silver medal where you made some minor mistakes, or a bronze medal where you completely messed up and Mama has to take over. But failing a step doesn't mean you have to start the recipe all over. It just lowers your overall score at the end. Depending on the score, you're also given a medal, but this doesn't actually mean anything in the long run. Most of the recipes are unlocked by simply completing other ones, even if you don't get a single step right, which results in no medal. So there's really no reason to keep going for a better score aside from personal pride. Even then, some steps are much more crucial than others. Sometimes you make a mistake and don't realize it until the end, other times you miss one thing and the step just ends immediately.
Yeah, Cooking Mama is very much a what you see is what you get type of thing. When I say this is the entire game, I mean the entire game, and sadly this means it gets very repetitive very quickly.
Remember how I said there were 76 different recipes? Well, the vast majority of them follow nearly identical steps throughout the entire thing. There's only like 4 recipes that actually have something unique to them. The rest of them are stuff you'll be doing over and over and over and over again. You see pretty much everything this game has to offer after only a dozen or so recipes. After that, it's just some very slight alterations and nothing else. Hell, this game is so repetitive that some recipes are literally built into each other. Yeah, some of them give you the option to change the recipe after a certain step because everything up to that point is identical. And this is the only way to unlock those recipes, so you literally have to replay some of them them in order to unlock them all, and I hope you keep track of which ones are which, because the game gives no indication of that. So yeah, this game has no real risk of failure since there's no real penalty for messing up, and even if there was, there isn't a great motivation to keep playing since all you unlock for doing recipes is more recipes, many of which are almost identical to stuff you already did. So the game gets old pretty fast. But not only is this game really redundant, it's also obnoxious at times. The touchscreen can be super picky with reading your inputs correctly, and you can screw up purely because the game doesn't register you swiping or tapping, either because it only works in a super specific spot or because the game just doesn't feel like helping you. And if all that wasn't bad enough, the game gives little to no help on what you're actually supposed to do. You're given a small instruction before you start and some visual cues. Most of them are easy to figure out, but others aren't helpful when the game decides to be ultra specific. And if you mess up, there's no real indication of what you did wrong. Mama doesn't say what you should have done instead, she just scolds you despite the fact that I have no idea what the issue is. Genuinely, there have been several moments where I assumed I was doing it correctly, only to find out I wasn't, figured it out through blind luck, or was so utterly confused that I had to look it up on the internet, which is something you should never have to do for what's supposed to be a series of fast-paced mini-games. There is a practice mode, but all that does is let you play one step without having to redo the whole recipe, and it still says nothing about what you're actually supposed to do.
I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't expecting to complain this much, but this game really isn't giving me that much to work with, because once you get past all the flaws, what you're left with is extremely limited in terms of variety.
I've just been talking about the main Let's Cook mode, but the other stuff is nothing to write home about. There's the Practice Skills mode, which is just repeatedly playing individual steps to go for a high score, and Combine Recipes, which is basically just playing two recipes at once. You go through the process of one dish, then do the other, and bam, that's it. You can't even combine any two dishes you want. You only have a limited number of options, which is lame. If you're giving me the option of combining different foods, at least let me go weird with it. Let me make my pizza and potato salad, dang it. But all I was able to get out of it was soba with an omelet on it and tofu sushi on spaghetti. And no, I'm not gonna try making these in real life. That sounds gross. Alright, I'm not gonna go over every single recipe in the game, so let's just do the different steps. Some of these are tied to a specific foods, while others are done to a variety of ingredients that are still doing the same thing. There's chopping, where you just tap the knife as quickly as possible. Cutting, where you slide the knife back and forth and you have to move it so fast it can seriously make my arm tired. Slicing, where you just swipe along the outline to cut. Adding, where you just put whatever pixelated ingredient is shown in the top screen in the bowl. Peeling potatoes, where you move the peeler over it in a very specific way. Peeling hot potatoes, where you unfold the corners before the heat gets too unbearable. Mixing, where you spin the food around so the Sims diamond is in the dark green but it moves back as soon as you stop. Kneading, where you follow the arrow to fold meat. Shaping, where you flick the stylus back and forth between the two hands. Sautéing, where you put the ingredients in the pan until they cook and you have to hit the finish button before they burn. Honestly, the best method for this is to not touch them at all.
Oh yeah, and can't forget the second part of sautéing, where you just flip the thing in over and over. I genuinely have no idea how this actually works.
Stewing, boiling, and frying are all nearly identical in that you just do whatever direction is told on the top screen when the bar goes past the line. Pressing the thing by tapping it, mixing it by holding down on the pot, adding ingredients, blowing into the microphone, flipping the pan, or switching the temperature, which you have to do at the exact right moment or you lose points. Deep frying, where you put the foods in the pot and wait for them to float back up and change color. Measuring, where you fill a cup with either rice or water and then put it in a pot so it reaches the red line. Melting butter, where you just spread butter around the pan. Grating, where you move a vegetable back and forth to shred it and then tap when it gets too full. Folding, which is another follow the line thing, occasionally with tapping as well. Tearing cabbages, where you gently pull the leaves off so they don't break. Cracking eggs, where you just tap them against the bowl. Beating eggs, where you stir them without whipping it, just switch sides when it starts to bubble. Separating yolk, where you trade an egg between shells so the yellow part stays in but the liquid falls out. Jesus, how many of these things are there? Weighing, where you remove parts of it to get the needed weight. Stuffing, where you put meat and rice in it by circling it. Rolling, where you roll out the dough into the correct shape. Coating, where you flip a piece of meat back and forth in some flour. Crumbing, where you put breadcrumbs on something not by flipping it but by tapping it a bunch of times and then flipping it, something the game is not clear about at all. Other coating, where you flip something in flour and then spin it in an egg. Tenderizing meat, which is just tapping the meat over and over again. Flavoring, which is the exact same thing. Cutting tendons, where you have to remember where the lines are and then slice them. Separating sprouts, where you wiggle the stem of these things to break them off. Peeling crab, where you do the same thing. Peeling shrimp, where you wiggle the head and then pull the rest off. Straining noodles in stock, where you lift the pot to pour it out without going too far. Charcoal grilling, where you fan the flames to keep them lit and remove the food before it burns. Sushi rice, where you have to blow into the microphone to fan the things and then follow the lines with the stylus, which is just stupid. Baking quantities, where you do basic math, setting the timer, take a wild guess, and placing on a stick where you match kebab patterns. Then there's the one-off steps, like removing an eggshell by tapping it, which is only for boiled eggs. Filling the rice balls, which is like kneading, while you pick an ingredient as well. Pounding rice, which is only for rice cakes, where you pound it without hitting your hand. Removing foam, where you circle the foam that pops up around the edges. Forming meatballs, where you spin the meat around. And frying dumplings, which is only for the fried octopus dumplings, spin around in a circle before they burn. Finally, the ones you're not actually great on, like cutting shapes with a cookie cutter, putting things on a plate, drawing stuff with sauce, which they are just asking you to be inappropriate with, and putting toppings on stuff. And after finally completing every recipe in the game, nothing happens.
Oh, wait, no, never mind. The utensils on the title screen turn gold. That's, something, I guess. Mama is kind of whatever. It's not an awful game, but it's not very good either. The novelty of it wears off pretty quickly because of how repetitive it is, and when you add in all the problems that it has, you're left with a game that I have no desire to ever return to again. Maybe others will see things differently from me, and maybe the sequel's improved in this area, but for now I think I can get away with saying that the series just isn't for me. Sadly, it didn't give me any new insight into the world of cooking, but that doesn't really matter. There's a lot of factors that go into making a great Thanksgiving, so you shouldn't have to stress yourself out too much by making a great meal for your family. Because takeout is usually a much better option.